Restream. There we are on YouTube. We are live. So I'm going to send out the tweet and all the good stuff. But you've got the DFS strategy show NBA style with myself and Adam Scherer. And we got caught off guard last night. There are only 4 games on the main slate. 1 at 7, 3 at 8 o'clock. There's a 5 o'clock game, and then randomly on Sunday they could have a robust 7-game slate if the sites decide to make 6 o'clock their main start time, which I hope they do, because then that would not compete with NFL quite as much, or they could go with a 5-game slate starting at 7 o'clock. So we'll have to see. But for both tonight, for Live Before Lock, you'll get Fast Eddie Fair, and then again tomorrow it'll be the only NBA show we have, but it'll also be Live Before Lock, and we'll go an hour before whichever slate or lock time they decide to choose. Today you've got coming up here at 11, you have the final DFS NFL strategy show. That will be Chris Randone and Sal Vitri. And then today we've got On the Contrary. I believe that is at, let's just call that 1:30. Adam, do you know who the special guest is today?
Yeah, I heard that we got some random person nobody's heard of that doesn't have any friends in the industry.
Yeah, there's this guy who's going to be on. He's spelling challenged. His name is CJ Kaltenbach. You know him better as The Siege, but he will be filling the third chair today with Chris Baggs and with Alex Baker. So that should be a fun one. You know that that Siege is not afraid of hot takes, not afraid of contrarian picks, so this will be a good one. Plus, it'll be fun because Adam, really good friends with him, and I know him a fair bit as well. So we'll be giving him crap behind the scenes. So this will be a good show on Sunday.
Not afraid of contrarian takes, very afraid of logical, well reasoned takes.
The Venn diagram of Siege, logic, and Twitter does not exist. But in any event, there we are on that. Adam, talk a little bit about last night. Let me get a couple of these other little housekeeping behind-the-scenes things kicked off here.
I'd rather not, but last night was
we'll talk about the boss man.
Yeah, Alex had a big night. Took down the $1,500 for $200K to first. So congrats to him. That's always really good to see. Yeah, it was a slate where I think we got a lot of stuff right. That I got enough stuff wrong that it kind of tanked me. But big nights from Luka, Lillard, D'Angelo Russell. I think it was a pretty interesting tournament slate because you didn't have to play. You didn't have to be on the chalk guys. Karl Anthony Towns was in foul trouble and I think scored like 48 DraftKings points. He lost out to guys like Nikola Vucevic. Whiteside had a good game. So I think it was a good tournament slate. I think that it definitely gave contrarian players a good shot at winning. There's just obviously a matter of if you were on the right contrarian plays all in the right lineup, which ended up not being the case for me. But I think that it was a pretty fun slate in that regard.
Yeah, fortunately I went to bed because I had a fair number of players in the Portland game who all did poorly. I chose 3 Brooklyn guys, and Karis LeVert was the big torpedo, but I did not have Damian Lillard. So sadly, my main lineup barely hung on to recover about 40% of the entry fees that were out there. However, nailed it for hockey. Shout out to our hockey projections. They have been a nice little find for me this season. Adam, I'm playing hockey every day. I had a 5X night last night. It was well worth it, and just missed out on a couple winner-take-alls, which would have been phenomenal. So back at that again today. You will get the NHL strategy show today with Jake Hari. So we've got you covered in multiple sports. Adam, we're gonna give a little bonus here. We do have one 5 o'clock game. It's Boston at San Antonio here. Boston, a little disappointing. Well, at least Kemba Walker was anyway in his return to Charlotte. But do you like anything in this standalone contest here?
So, it's showdown pricing.
Yeah, showdown. Sorry. Yeah. So the pricing is all going to be maybe more just of a player analysis there.
Yeah. So I mean the minutes for Boston, where they're going. Gordon Hayward's looked great. Tatum's getting a bunch of minutes. Brown, I would expect to play into the low 30s. So not the best spot against San Antonio, but I think that looking to, Gordon Hayward, where he's still cheaper than Tatum, cheaper than Walker, is pretty nice. And then I think that Jaylen Brown is still a good value.
All right. That last little one here. And then, yeah, that's kind of a mess. DeJounte Murray has been phenomenal. He almost got a triple-double, but, minutes limit and all that, which I agree with, by the way. But he has been someone who's phenomenal. So those are kind of the quick highlights for those of you that are gluttons for punishment going in on that 5 o'clock.
Murray did play 26 minutes, which obviously it's only a couple minutes more than the 23 or 24 he had been playing, but it signals maybe a little bit more leash. And also when you're talking about someone averaging well over a point per minute, it's a few points.
Yeah, that will be very helpful as well. All right, now on to our 4-game main slate here. A couple items of news and note. Otto Porter has been ruled out. He has a bruised left foot. We know that Draymond Green still out with his ligament issue on his finger, or with his finger. You know that D'Angelo Russell is on a back-to-back, so we'll have to see if that's going to impede his minutes or if he plays for sure or not tonight. Kristaps Porzingis on the back-to-back as well. He got a little dinged up last night. Let me see, who else is back-to-backs? So Dallas and Memphis are both back-to-back, and then Golden State. So those are the 3 teams that are on the back-to-back. Chandler Hutchison will be starting in place of Otto Porter. And then, of course, I'm going to talk about Kobe White because he's one of my favorite plays today. Only other news I've got is Lonzo Ball, a little bit of a sore groin, they have said. So hopefully he got some work done on that. Wink, wink, nod, nod. New Orleans, Charlotte. Adam, start us off here with the Pellies.
Yeah, so New Orleans, as usual, a pretty interesting rotation from game to game. Last night we saw Nicola Melli rejoin the starting lineup, but basically just he played 10 minutes, played a stint to open the first and third quarters. You saw Etuan Moore get back into the rotation. Kenrich Williams was not in the rotation. Jahlil Okafor only played 16 minutes, but the thing that was really interesting about that game, if you look on Popcorn Machine, was that the Pelicans were down big, and then their second unit started to make a run at the start of the fourth quarter. So they got a bunch of extra playing time at the expense of the starters. Like Jahlil Okafor didn't play at all in the fourth quarter. You saw Etuan Moore, Jackson Hayes, Alexander Walker all play the entire fourth quarter. Kenrich Williams played almost the entire fourth after not even playing in the first half. So you don't want to just quickly look at how many minutes they played or anything like that. It's more useful, I think, to look at the first half rotations. That was a half where it was a competitive game for the most part. They played a pretty sane rotation. Didn't have every player on the team in it. So looking at that, I think that if they were to run the same rotations tonight, you could still expect around 22 minutes for Okafor, probably 18 to 20 for Derek Favors, assuming he's coming off the bench behind him. Lonzo seemed fine. He played 17 or 18 first half minutes. Drew Holiday, same thing for him, and Brandon Ingram. So I think that Ingram's the guy that really stands out to me from the Pels. He's got a 28.9% usage rate for the season. I expect his efficiency to come down a bit. He's just shooting better than he has shown he's capable of at any point. But that being said, he's still picking up assists. He's still playing big minutes. He still leads the team in usage, and he's still affordable. So against a pretty bad defensive team in Charlotte, I think Ingram really stands out. Drew Holiday is a decent play. So is Ball, and then Okafor for value. But I think that Ingram's the main priority here for me.
Yeah, Ingram has just been absolutely phenomenal so far this season, Adam. And that was, we saw him get shut down there with that, I'm going to say it wrong, it's something, the thoracic outlet, whatever injury, which was something to do with the blood vessels or veins and nerves coming up through his shoulder area, which was potentially pinching and causing issues. But he has had that taken care of and just seems to be phenomenal thus far. So he is someone that I wish I would have had on some of my season-long teams, hashtag season-long, but I don't. In any event here, looking at these guys, because we only have 8 teams again in our player pool for New Orleans here, I'm not really feeling the love on the value guys. most of them are, let's just say, appropriately priced. But I guess you could argue if you're feeling frisky with Frank Jackson, he's low enough that he could be a counter perhaps to some of these Bulls guys. But you're taking on some inherent risk there because he's kind of ninth man when it comes down to who's doing stuff. Two guys that scare the hell out of me. You talked a little bit about Okafor. Derek Favors. I can't get there, and I think I'm even at the point where I won't even have him in my player pool, and rarely do I do that. Now, with where his projections are coming in, I'm looking at 3 or 4 sites that have their projections posted early. It's higher than I would have thought. Most of them are coming in with him in that 25 to 28 fantasy point range. I just don't see that happening. How do you feel specifically about Favors?
Yeah, I have him projected for 20 minutes, which may even be a little bit high, but I have him at 23 DraftKings points.
Okay, so see, this is a funny thing. So, and the reason I'm kind of calling this one out is I tend to get a little more conservative. This would be one of those spots where we know he's the guy that can put up 40 fantasy points. We just haven't seen it forever. Well, you want to be there before it happens rather than chasing the points afterwards. But for me, he's one guy that stood out that I didn't like.
Yeah, it's just a minutes thing. He did seem better yesterday than he did in his first game back from injury, where he only played 8 minutes. But until we get, Derek Favors is starting and not restricted at all, you can't really project him for more than around 20 minutes. So it's not like he's minimum salary. So it's just a minutes issue for me.
All right, so let's move along over here to the Charlotte side. Terry Rozier, very disappointing game against his old squad at Boston. See, can't always count on that revenge to carry the day. However, on the season, Adam, he has been pretty solid because Charlotte is essentially a hot mess. Guys that I feel are viable tonight are Rozier, which no surprise there. Devontae Graham, but his price is cruising up there. 6,700 on DK, 64 on FanDuel, 20 on Yahoo. I think that's reasonable and fair, and again, 8 teams in the player pool, but it's going to feel a little higher than we see. You're hoping he reaches 25 minutes, but who knows. And then Cody Zeller would be the third guy. His price has come down on DraftKings, 5,400. That's kind of nice. The question comes, are you willing to earmark your center spot for him? Because you only have one of those on FanDuel. And then over on Yahoo, the $19 is okay. We do have a little bit more flexibility there because we do have the utility spot. How are you feeling about this side of this matchup?
The backcourt's where I'm most interested with Rozier and Devontae Graham. You're seeing Graham consistently play 30-plus minutes. If he had stayed in to close that game yesterday, which was a blowout, he would have played another 32 minutes, if he had finished out the fourth quarter. And so we're seeing the workload consistently be there for him. 22% usage rate, 35% assist percentage this season. Huge pace-up spot for Charlotte against one of the least efficient defenses in New Orleans, who also plays at one of the fastest paces in the league. So really favorable matchup there. The salary is coming up to where it's not, a great value, but I think he is still very fairly priced. And then Terry Rozier coming off the terrible game against Boston. I haven't really been on him at all this season. Devontae Graham's been obviously stealing a lot from him, but you're still getting 34-plus minutes from Rozier, and the salary isn't really moving because he hasn't been that great. He does lead the team with a 24% usage rate. He's second to Graham with a 25.5% assist percentage. So this is a slate where I expect to be going to Rozier, especially if ownership on him comes down a little bit because of his last game.
All right.
And as far as Zeller, completely ownership dependent for me. He hasn't played more than 20 minutes in any of his last 3 games. That hasn't been foul-based or blowout-based. It's just been rotation-based. They're playing Biyombo minutes, and then they're going small with PJ Washington at the 5. So that's obviously really, really concerning. But the flip side to that is there's basically zero chance that between now and the end of the season, Cody Zeller never plays 28 minutes or something like that. Like he clearly can, and there's going to be games that he does. We're just not going to know when they are. So he's, for me, not really a play on FanDuel because he's 6,400 and you only get one center. But on DraftKings at 5,400, where he doesn't cost you the center spot, if his ownership is going to be really low, that's a guy that can win you a tournament if you just happen to be on the right side of variance and he gets that extra if he gets those fourth quarter minutes that we were seeing earlier in the season. If the field is saying like, oh, it's Cody Zeller against New Orleans and he's really cheap and he's, one of the more popular guys, then I'm more than happy to just be very much underweight and hope that we see the same rotation we have been.
All right. That one kind of not much else we can wring out of it. We're gonna save that Houston-Chicago game for the last one, Adam, since there'll be a fair amount to talk about there. Again, just 4 games on our main slate, but that's okay. It'll allow you to have more time to get ready for NFL today. You can dabble in hockey if you choose to do so. And then, of course, there's also NCAA football. And we've got some information for that, both in front of and behind the paywall. We've also
sorry.
Go ahead.
I'll say also a good, with it being the 4-game slate with NBA, it's a good day if you normally only play like one site because of time constraints. It'll be a little bit easier to add in, sites like Yahoo, sites like FantasyDraft, where it can be tough with NBA because of just, scrambling around lock. But with only 4 games, there's only so much news that can break. So it's a good day to, try and play around with that.
Yeah, that's a good call out there, Adam, because those 2 sites generally tend to have a little bit more room in their contests. FantasyDraft's actually been doing an okay job of filling up. They make their contests a little smaller on Saturdays, but remember, rake free over there. That's always nice. And then, of course, presenting sponsor Yahoo has some phenomenal stuff. After lunch, you'll get the $250,000 baller article for NFL. That's written by me, and I'm just putting the finishing touches on that. You'll also get the cash building blocks article right after this show. I was about to hit save, but was waiting on our ownership projections, so you'll get a sneak peek there with some of my thoughts on that one. And then again, if you have not yet signed up for Yahoo, go to the bottom of any of those cash building blocks articles, and there's a little note section that will give you the promo code, the link, and instructions on how to claim your $30 with your initial deposit bonus in YSRPs. Adam, our next game here, Dallas and Memphis. Let me hit refresh. I'm not seeing a points total on. Oh, there we go. It actually has come in. So we have Dallas on the road, favored by a bucket. How the hell did they lose last night? I was asleep, so I don't know. How the hell did they lose to New York last night? Come on.
Yeah, I didn't see the game.
Good God. Courtney Lee got his 5 or 6 ceremonial minutes in his start and then didn't see the court again. And then you had Porzingis was kind of Luka phenomenal as always, but then freaking Knicks somehow won. Can never trust the Knicks. But both these teams are on a back-to-back, starting here with Dallas. Again, we've got Kristaps Porzingis on the back-to-back, so that is a question of his minutes or what will he do. He didn't seem to be overly taxed last night, but did get a little dinged up. So let's start with the Mavericks side here. Adam, assuming Porzingis play, or what is your read on the Porzingis minutes in this back-to-back, coming off missing the better part of 2 years now due to injury?
Yeah, I mean, just waiting on news, really. They had said before the season that they would be resting him on some back-to-backs. We haven't seen him rest yet this year that I can remember. He has played no back-to-backs, though. So, obviously we'll see. We'll have to wait on news on that. If he's in, I assume he's in. I don't think that they're going to be like, hey, he's only playing 25 minutes. So I expect that either he rests or he plays 32 to 34 minutes.
Okay, so let's assume he is in. And where do you have him? Because his price is not egregious. Of course, still a little rust on his game. If he can shake that off and do okay, we have ourselves a bargain. I get a little nervous on the first back-to-back, though, even with what you had just put forth.
Yeah, he's a pretty neutral play for me. I have him projected for 34 minutes. It's a pace-up spot, but and also I think his projection will come up a little bit. My baselines are a little bit off because we didn't get that line until right now. But I think he's an okay option if he plays. I don't think he's a huge priority. I think the obvious priority from this team is Luka.
All right, let's get my filters here. So let's see. Kristaps is 75 on DK, 83 on FanDuel, and then 35 on Yahoo. So reasonably priced, but again, we've given a few of the caveats there. Luka, There's one raw points projected guy above everybody else tonight. That is James Harden. However, Luka is in the mix of the next 3 or 4 guys that could contend for that title. You've got him at 96 on DraftKings, 10-6 on FanDuel, and 47 on Yahoo. Adam, he's one of your favorite players. He is a triple-double waiting to happen. Spend some time talking about your guy, Luka Doncic. And I'm waiting. We were talking about apartment decorations. You could have room for a fathead behind you of Luka Doncic.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing not to like about Luka. Obviously, the back-to-back is like the only thing you could point to, but he only played about 36 minutes last night. It's not like he played a ton of minutes. You know, we've seen him play 38, 39 in some games. So I don't see any reason to really be concerned. His salary on DraftKings actually dropped $300 from yesterday. He leads the team with a 32.9% usage rate, a 47.7% assist percentage, 13.5% rebound percentage is also, I think, the highest on the team. Memphis 6th in pace, 20th in defensive rating. So good matchup in both of those areas. There's just really no reason for me not to like Luka as one of my highest owned guys on the slate.
What do you think the odds are? And you actually may have them in your sheet that he tops Harden.
I don't have them yet. And in terms of raw points,
yes, 1 in 5 maybe.
Yeah, probably something like that. Maybe a little bit higher.
Okay, and that's one of those that, you know, it's sort of contingent on Harden having partly a poorer game than normal, which a bad game was what, 50 or 60 points, and that's a triple double there for Luka, which is very much in play. Memphis is no longer grit and grind. They have the 6th fastest pace. They're just 2 possessions per game behind number 1 Minnesota, but they are coming in at 108.5. Dallas is, where'd Dallas go? Dallas is 20th at 103. If we look at defensive efficiency with regards to Memphis, they're middle of the pack. So it's at 107 points per 100. So that is an interesting spot here to look for Dallas. Dallas on the other side, Adam.
What site do you use for? Did you just use for defensive rating?
I use Hollinger Pace on ESPN.
Okay, because NBA has them at 109.
Who, Memphis?
Yeah.
My guess, let me see, Memphis. Yeah, 108.5.
109.3.
Okay. My guess is that they haven't updated for last night's game. One of the sites probably doesn't have last night's game, and it's probably ESPN.
Yeah, it's NBA has all 8 games. It's obviously not a big deal. I just wasn't sure because it's one of those things that varies from.
Yeah, no, that's actually, let's spend just a second on that. That's an interesting phenomenon. So I usually try to utilize the same data source just so relationally it should be directionally correct. But Adam has an excellent point here, and one of the big ones is usage. Oh my God, everybody! I mean, we know what the definition of usage is, but if you look at all the sites, they're off by fraction. Sometimes as much as a whole percentage point, and that would be a variety from ESPN to NBA Advanced Analytics to Basketball Reference, etc. It's kind of all over the place. I'm seeing it a ton with for NFL stuff. How can you get targets wrong? There are a certain number of pass attempts that equal target, and it's like I've got 4 data sources, and everybody's slightly off. You know, they might be off by 2 or 3 at this point in the season, higher or lower. But they're never fully consistent. It's like rare when you get all 4 sites comparing one player and they all match up 100%. Now, of course, obviously the central statistics like yards, carries, stuff like that is, they all get it from the same data source. But targets seems to be one that they don't, which is surprising to me that it's still not standardized at this point. But again, so if you see little tweaks here and there in the statistics, that's just one of the reasons why. The other thing is, kind of as we mentioned, you get once we get a little bit more runway in, we're about 10% of the way through the season at this point, maybe 12% depending on which teams have played 8 or 9 games. But if you look at probably another 2 or 3 weeks from now, the rates are going to be a lot more stabilized for the season-long rates. So even if you're missing a game or 2, it's not going to be horrid. Excuse me, when you're looking on it by a team. But that's about the point where you want to start looking at more recent sample size. And then also when you're looking at recent sample size with the NBA, it gets real tricky because you want to see what types of teams have they been playing. Did they go through a stretch where they played, the West Coast swing where they're playing Utah and the Lakers and these teams that are playing slow and have good defensive efficiency, and then they have got to go and then Denver. So that's a common road trip is a 4 or 5 game for the East Coast ones, hitting those three cities, and then working in either Portland or Sacramento in that mix. It's not the Western Conference is not playing with those key marquee teams as fast as they have in prior times. So it's one of those things similar to, as we were kind of hitting on and started this whole thing with Memphis, playing much faster than they have in the past. You got to look at this stuff, and you need context. And always be careful when you hear somebody say it. Understand what they're saying, because we'll use this term a lot, a pace-up spot. Some pace-up spots are better than others. They are not all created equal. That's a good way to say it. All right, Adam. Back to, let me see, Dallas here. Of the understudies, of the secondary players of that cast of misfit toys, does anybody appear to be reasonable for you? We had a J.J. Barea sighting the other day. We got Courtney Lee sighting last night. It's a back-to-back. Those guys are probably still in ice packs.
Yeah, their rotation is a bit of a mess. The two guys that I would be most interested in from the rest of the team would be Dwight Powell, who played 28 minutes last night, took one shot, did absolutely nothing. He's been, not super involved offensively, which makes sense when you're on the floor with Luka and Porzingis. If Porzingis sits, he would get a boost, but even if he doesn't, I still expect around 30 minutes. And, he's cheap enough where you could take a shot on him. And then DeLon Wright, who started the second half, honestly, no idea where his minutes end up. He went from barely playing 2 games ago to starting the second half and playing like 24 and a half minutes last night. He's 3,900 on DraftKings. If he were to get the start and you project him for like 26 minutes, he's an okay value.
Oh, Carlisle. Thanks. Hey, shout out in the YouTube chat there, Paul Aglakis. Adam, he took down 100K last night.
Oh, nice. Congrats.
Wanted to say thanks to everybody there. Paul, get behind the paywall. Jump into Slack here. It'll be fun, I promise. And don't spend all that money in one spot, but make sure to get something nice for yourself and or your significant other to commemorate this occasion, because these are few and far between unless your name is Awesemo.
Don't tell your significant other, just play higher stakes.
Well, Adam is the official professional tout here, so I guess you could follow his advice, or you could follow mine, the guy that's married and still allowed to do this. There are rules around it. All right, looking on to the other side of the action here. Let me get back to my Excel sheet so I can drop the filter here to Memphis. So I almost wrote him up as a bad value. That would be Jaren Jackson Jr., but he is only a value on DraftKings at 4,700. On FanDuel, he is 64. On Yahoo, he is 21. Adam, he has been an unmitigated disaster this season. Now, he's dealing with a little bit of a sore knee. Foul issues are always there. But even doing game log watching, what the hell? It's putrid.
Yeah, he has not been good. We are talking about Jackson, right?
Jackson, Triple J.
Okay. Yeah.
That's Jackson.
That's what I thought we were talking about, and I was pretty sure when you said fouls. But, he finally played minutes last night. Still wasn't great, but he's cheap enough where, I'm going to him in tournaments here. He's only 4,700 on DraftKings. I have him projected for 26 to 28 minutes. I think that in games he doesn't foul, you should get 30 to 32. It's just that he fouls, 8 out of 10 games. So it's really tough to give him like a minutes projection that you're comfortable with. But I think like 28 minutes is reasonable because, again, you are shaving a few points off of his best possible outcome. And you don't want to just be not rostering Jaren Jackson because he gets in foul trouble, especially when he's this cheap. So I think it's just a spot where you're not going to be very comfortable, but he's a lot cheaper than he should be based on his ceiling.
Yeah, and that's why in the cash building blocks article, I went away from saying good chalk and bad chalk. Now I have what I call good value and risky value. So like last night, Raul Neto, well, he was risky value. Why was he risky value? Totally fine in your cash games. Where is was the upside going to come from? In his last 120 games, he had 6 with more than 20 fantasy points. He had one with more than 30. It was 31. I think last night, what did he get? Like 27 or 28? Perfectly fine. But where is the upside? And as we've seen with funky pricing, the way the game has changed, if you start trying to say I need my 5x value, my 6x, my whatever, that doesn't work anymore. It's the algorithms are much different than they used to be when they were kind of all based off of back in the day. They were just based off of expected averages and production. They're factoring in pace, play, opponents, popularity of prior slates, etc. now, so it's entirely different. So just be careful if you're married to those facts. And I mean, Adam, we've seen it so many times this year. It's like you need 40 fantasy points from each position at a minimum to hit the top end of these tournaments on DK or FanDuel, where everything's so damn top heavy.
Yeah, that's why it's important to, when you're trying to create a value metric, to use a multiplier plus a constant instead of just a multiplier. Like you said, I remember when I started playing, and it was just 5x is value, and the problem there is that if you're going to use that number, someone is 3K, and that means that them getting 15 points is just as valuable to your team as the 10K guy getting 50 when raw points are obviously what you need. So just use a multiplier so it makes it so that your 3K guys still need like 30 points, and that's just a better way to gauge value.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean they're bad plays. It just means this ceiling game is harder for them to reach, or their ceiling isn't as high as we may need it. And with all the various optimizers and people getting so darn sophisticated here, particularly with NBA, one of the more projectable sports, it's one of those where the really good players are figuring all of this in to the lineups they're building. I mean, you get to see behind the paywall here on weekdays, you get Alex at 4:00 basically shows you how he's building teams. Now, a fair amount will change between now and or between 4:00 and lock, just because all it takes is one piece of news to throw the entire slate on its ear, and that seems to happen all the time these days. But you get to see his thought. He talks about, hey, here's how I'm using the Osmo lineup builder to measure and see if I have a contrarian enough lineup. Is this too chalky? If I want to make it less chalky, does it take, are we looking at the product? Are we looking at the sum of our the ownership projections? Does it take just one or two really unique guys at the 2 or 3%? Two of those can really turn what is otherwise chalky lineup into something that will still be unique. Those are all the really interesting things that he breaks down for you as he's building the lineups. And I've learned a ton from those, and those are kind of nice. You don't always necessarily have to watch those live. If you can't get to those as a subscriber and you can take a look at them the next day or the next morning, you can just hear his thought process going through, because you're going to be we make a series of decisions every day. Similar decision points are going to happen constantly, and you can see how he's reacted to some of them, and then you can apply that going forward. All right, enough about that. But again, we just have 4 games, so we're going to do a little more educational stuff on the show today than hammering through all this. Back to Memphis. Anything else and there should be some other stuff, the wings, the guards, anything you want to hit on here in a game that's I think it'll be reasonably close. So I think we could see those quote closing units out there. I just don't know who it's going to be.
Spread, so hell of a hot take there.
Well, my point. Well, I was trying to expand. Do you know what Carlisle's going to do? No. Do we know if Jackson's going to be in that mix? No. Do we know who else is going to be there? No. But if you can come down and figure out, besides Luka, who's going to be on the floor, and Rozier, you may be able to wring a little bit extra upside out of it. Finish up on Memphis here.
Yeah, really interested in Valanciunas. He only played 22 minutes last night, but that game blew out. Looked like he was on pace to well more than that. We had seen 28 minutes in his prior game. He's still pretty inexpensive. It's a pretty nice matchup against this Dallas front court. And Valanciunas, we know, is a point per minute monster. So I think that projecting him for 28 minutes makes him a really strong play. Actually, my favorite play on Memphis.
All right. Anything else for Memphis?
Completely like neutral plays in Jay Crowder and John Morant for me.
Jay Crowder, one of his many revenge games. There you go.
Um, I'm looking on FanDuel because he's priced up on DraftKings, but on FanDuel, Dylan Brooks is 5K. So it's still a little more expensive than I would like, but much
12
better.
on Yahoo. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, pretty decent price point. Not a great player or anything, but and very scoring dependent, but should play around 30 minutes and get up some shots. So I think that he's a he's a better play on Yahoo than FanDuel, a better play on FanDuel than DraftKings.
All right. Let's see. Looking at YouTube chat. Xerxes Wycop wants to know why I talk about everything but what you want to hear. Because, one, I got the microphone. Okay. Mic drop. Whoop, there we go. And two, there's only 4 games. So these are some of the things that we get a lot of different viewers on Saturday than we do during the week. So I just want to, and a lot of these guys and people listening to this aren't able to watch the strategy shows during the week, which I think are valuable in and of themselves. So just trying to give them a little extra goose here for what they can see. Don't forget, you get live before lock. You're going to have unfettered fast, steady fare because I'm barely going to talk at all. There's 4 games. He can go to town on those. You get that from 6 to 7 tonight. So you'll get very little me and a whole lot of Eddie. So that'll be the trade-off. Adam, on to our second half of the slate, aka Game 3. We've got Golden State and the Thunder. You've got the Thunder favored by 12 at home, 220 implied point total here. What the hell is going to happen with Golden State? Have you heard anything about D'Angelo Russell at all for the back-to-backs?
I have not. I'm kind of concerned about it since that game went to overtime last night too. He played 40 minutes. I'm assuming he's in until we hear otherwise. Obviously, I'm projecting him for 35 minutes unless I hear otherwise. It's a spot that scares me because, for one, it's D'Angelo Russell, and for two, he's playing a back-to-back after playing 40 minutes. But I don't really. There's nothing I can do about it. If we don't get word that he's limited or resting, I'm not going to just like manually project him for less points because he played 40 minutes last night. And if he's in and not limited, he's a really good play. He's got a usage rate north of 35% without Curry on the floor this year. Assist percentage up above 35% as well. We just saw him play 35 minutes in regulation. So I don't really. I can't get away from him if he's not going to be limited.
Yeah, and I think that's the approach we have to do. Alec Burks actually got rebounds last night. That was kind of exciting to see. He's going to be one of the guys that we're going to compare against some of the Chicago value plays. He's 4,500 on DraftKings, 51 on FanDuel, 13 on Yahoo. Those are all reasonable price points. I'm perfectly fine with him coming off the bench. Screwed up my formula there. Amari Spellman is coming in at 41, 4,010. I like him better than Marquise Chris. You got Kai Bowman, who has alternatingly disappointed and disappointed in most games. I guess that's not alternating. You've got Damian Lee. You've got Eric Paschal, Jordan Poole. One, who the hell are these guys? And two, does anybody pique your interest?
Not really. So the two big takeaways, or a couple of the big takeaways from last night, were that Kai Bowman went back to just being D'Angelo Russell's backup, which is important because not even really related to Kai Bowman, because I think everyone knew that he wasn't going to be in play anymore. But he wasn't stealing minutes from the other wings. He was just backing up D'Angelo Russell. So it leaves more minutes out there for the other guys. Glenn Robinson played 37 minutes in regulation. He was playing really big minutes with Russell out as well, getting time at the 4 and at the 3. So still projecting him for 34 to 36 minutes. He's gotten expensive. He's not like a core play or a great value, but out of the non-D'Angelo Russell Golden State guys, I think he's one of the most interesting just because of the minutes. And then Willie Cauley-Stein, including overtime, played 24 minutes. I have him projected for 22. He's only 3,900 on DraftKings. So again, not a guy that I'm building a ton of lineups around, but someone who, as a value on a 4-game slate, I'm not really, upset if he gets into some lineups. But beyond that, it gets tough. You got about 26 minutes from Burks, about 26 minutes from Poole. Both of them are priced up a little bit from the time without Russell. Eric Paschal played 32 minutes. he shouldn't be too affected in terms of playing time, but he's going to get less usage with Russell out there. He was up around 24% when Russell was hurt. I expect him to be around 19, 20% with Russell back. So he's tough to get to. Damian Lee probably plays around 24 minutes. So I think really it comes down to D'Angelo Russell being a really, really good play if he's in, and then Robinson and Cauley Stein being secondary plays. If Russell were to be ruled out, Kai Bowman immediately gets a huge, huge bump and becomes one of the top plays on the entire slate. And then you would also get more playing time for guys like Burks and Poole, more usage for Eric Pascal. It would obviously just go back to exactly what we had seen prior to last game.
All right. Let's see here. We've got the Thunder side here. Steven Adams still slightly disappointing, but the price just is hard to pass on DK in particular at 54. Tournaments, more of a tournament play on Yahoo at 19. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, by far the best option here. You have a mediocre choice with Dennis Schroeder. Chris Paul, slightly showing signs of life. And then Adams' favorite, Hamidou Diallo here.
You like SGA more than Adams?
I am going to say yes on this one. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky because of a lot of the guys at the top in the raw points, Westbrook, Harden, Luka, etc., are guards. So I'm hoping he might fall into the sweet spot here, Adam, and be, well, as overlooked as you can be on a 4-game slate. We'll have to see. I think I have them. When I say I have them, the sites I am looking at and downloaded here to create an amalgamation of the projections have Gilgeous-Alexander slightly better on a point per dollar basis across the board. What do you have? Because I'm just taking other people's work. You put in the work on yours.
Yeah, I have Gilgeous-Alexander a little ahead of Adams, but they're easily my two favorite plays from OKC. I'm going to be going. I had 50% Adams the other day against San Antonio. That killed my night basically. But the big takeaways there were that he played 28 minutes. He had played 26 the game before that. In most of his games this year, he's either been in foul trouble, a blowout, or left early with injury. So that's a big reason why we haven't seen him top 30 minutes yet. I think that you'll see his minutes, keep trending upwards. But also, there were only OKC in that game only got 31 rebounds. LaMarcus Aldridge in that game shot like 19 for 23. There just weren't a lot of rebounds in that game, and that obviously is going to kill Adams. But it's also not something that you expect that happens very often. You have a fast-paced Golden State team today that doesn't have really any efficient shooting on their team. So you should have plenty of rebound opportunities for Adams. He's one of the leaders in the entire NBA in rebound chances per game, despite only averaging 25 or 26 minutes per game, getting a lot more chances without Russell Westbrook. So I'm going right back to Steven Adams. I think he's a good cash play. I think he's a great tournament play. He'll be one of my highest owned guys today. And then Gilgeous-Alexander, you're getting 36 minutes. You're getting a very scoring-dependent player. He has a 26% usage rate this year, which leads the team. 14.5% assist percentage, 8% rebounding percentage. Neither of those are great in terms of giving you a high floor. Like he very easily can go out there and just not give you any peripherals, and that makes it really, really tough to get a monster game out of him. But if you get a game where he shoots well, and then he still at least has the opportunity to run into 7 or 8 rebounds and a handful of assists, he still does have a lot of upside at his salary, facing one of the worst defensive team in the NBA. So I think him and Adams are the two priorities for me from OKC, and then Dennis Schroeder, Chris Paul, Danilo Gallinari are all quality secondary options.
All right. Oh, interesting. Okay, sorry. I was trying to find our full schedule for today, but hell, nobody up. Oh, there it is. Okay, all right. Sorry, just wanted to make sure I'm not missing anything here as I do a quick run through. We've got. All right, we'll get to that in a second here because I can find the right page. Okay, there we go. So you got the NFL strategy show coming on after us. That will be Chris Randone and Sal Vitri. Following that, you're going to have On the Contrary. That will be Alex Baker, Chris Spags, and the one and only CJ Kaltenbach. You know him better as Siege. He's doing some work there for Fantasy Cruncher. He's also over there at Arbor Pro. So if you need any winterization or anything with your yard, your flower beds, etc., go ahead and hit Siege up there on Twitter. And then, of course, we have Jay Kari covering the NHL. And then Live Before Lock with Fast Eddie Fear, 6 to 7 with our robust 4-game slate. Anything else you would like to mention on this before we get to our final game, Adam?
No, I think that was it from that one.
All right. Let's see. Let's talk Houston first because no, you know what? Let's talk Chicago first. All right. So the article that I'm going to post here shortly for the Cash Game Building Blocks article features write-ups entirely from this game. So we have Harden, arguably the best raw points projection. Okay, there's no disputing that. That's not hot news. But on the other side, we know we have Otto Porter Jr. sitting out. So no Otto Porter Jr. means a couple different things. Chandler Hutchison is going to be starting, which is nice, but I'm expecting him to play 25 minutes would be my guess. He was dealing with a hamstring issue. He's only played at the beginning of the season. He's only played in 2 games thus far. And frankly, Porter's basically playing 27, 28 minutes in the 3 games he was healthy prior to his in-game injury on his last start. The other guy I really like is Kobe White. One thing, his hair is amazing. It's awesome. He is my new Alfred Payton since Alfred Payton decided to conform more to the norm, and it's fabulous. If you go look up Kobe White on Twitter, you're going to get a nice highlight of him jumping a passing lane and going down and dunking, and it is phenomenal. I'm very jealous of that. So I like him. The question is, how many minutes is he going to play? Now, the interesting thing with him, Adam, I did a little popcorn machine review this morning. He has essentially been over the last 3 games where Otto Porter was healthy. He has essentially been the backup to Otto Porter minutes-wise. Now, they don't play exactly the same position, but minutes-wise he has, with the exception of them overlapping for about 3.5 minutes in the fourth quarter of the last 3 games. So, one, we're giving away 27 minutes or so of Otto Porter. What goes to White? What goes to Hutchison? I'm thinking 20-25 to Hutchison. I think White gets closer to 30 minutes tonight because they will play a little bit together is my guess. Does this... and then I've also seen some people mentioning Thaddeus Young. We can't... people are giving away more than 27 minutes of Otto Porter at this point.
So Thaddeus Young is a completely different thing. I think that he's a viable play, but it has nothing to do with Otto Porter. Okay. As far as Kobe White goes, I'm giving him 28 minutes here. He's been playing 24 in the games where Porter was playing, 27, 28. If you look at the second half rotation with Otto Porter out against Atlanta, you got 4 minutes and 21 seconds of overlap with Chandler Hutchison. White played a total of about 14, 15 minutes in that half. Chandler Hutchison played like 11 to 12 minutes, which I think is pretty representative of how I expect this game to go. I have Hutchison at 24. I have White at 28. Hutchison is a really, really good point per dollar value. He averaged only 0.6 points per minute last season, which obviously is an issue. Probably or should average more than that, but I have him projected for 0.8 points per minute today. It gives you a projection around 20 DraftKings points, which is a good point per dollar option. It's someone that does open up a lot in your lineups that you can pay up, but it's also someone that I'm not going to be like really scared of not having in some tournament lineups because I don't think that there's a really good chance at all that he puts up a score in terms of raw points that you actually have to have in your lineup. So definitely a cash play, and then someone that you can play in tournaments if you are contrarian elsewhere. But Kobe White's the one that I really like here. He's only 4,300 on DraftKings. I have him at 28 minutes. For the season, he has a 24.2% usage rate, which is actually the second highest on the team to Zach LaVine. He comes off the bench. He's their bench scorer, and I think there's a really good chance he closes this game as well. I fully expect him to be on the floor closing over Chandler Hutchison, assuming it's a competitive game, especially if Chicago's losing to Houston as they should be. If you get this late in the fourth quarter, a 6 to 8 point Houston lead, Kobe White being on the floor just is what you need if you're Chicago. Chandler Hutchison being out there doesn't do anything for you. So that on top of the fact that I expect Hutchison to be somewhat limited by the injury, makes me just think that White's a phenomenal player.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. You guys will see. I'll post as soon as we get the ownership projections. I'll post the article here. But the sneak peek is it's funny because I have Hutchison. I kept him in good value today as opposed to where I put Halzino Neto in risky value yesterday. The reason is there were 22 teams in action. There was a lot of other options we could go to. Today there are 8. So just if you're with the herd, it's not the worst thing in the world. Again, I call out that I think he'll get 23 to 25 minutes, and I don't see much more. But he gets 20, 25 fantasy points. Yeah, okay, we lucked out. He could very easily get 17, 15. We'll just have to see. But I like Kobe White a lot. Let's talk Thaddeus Young. He's the guy I put in risky. Adam, and this is kind of what I had to say here. I said we've got a clean sweep of our featured players coming from the same game. Thaddeus Young is 31 years old and in his 13th NBA season. He contributes a little bit of everything, but has topped only 25 fantasy points twice this season. He's played 9 games. He has yet to exceed 31. On FanDuel, he fares a little bit better with their scoring awarding 3 points for blocks and steals. On DraftKings, he's reasonably priced, but I think there are better options. And at Yahoo at 14, I don't really want him. I like a lot more of those guys in the 10, 11, $12 range. So I don't think he'll be quite as popular on Yahoo, which then in turn means, okay, well, he could be a better play if the herd's really not on him there. We kind of have 3 different price tiers here, Adam. How are you feeling about Thaddeus Young?
He's not someone that you can trust at all. And if he's going to get ownership, then just find something else. Like I prefer, it's not really even close to me how much I like Kobe White at 4,300 more than Thaddeus Young at 4,200. The thing with Young is that he's pretty directly tied to Lauri Markkanen in terms of minutes. He can get some playing time alongside him if Markkanen's playing the 5, which we saw happen a little bit in the Atlanta game. But he's more or less, Markkanen's going to get his 30 minutes. And so it's tough to give Young a ton of minutes without Markkanen getting in foul trouble or something. But it is a good matchup. Houston plays at a fast pace. Young is a pretty decent producer in a lot of categories when he's on the floor. It's more of a 4-game slate contrarian play for me. Like if he actually gets ownership, then it's pretty easy for me to get away from it. I don't think he sees like extra minutes because of Porter being out.
Okay, we've got Chris Dunn. Tomas Satoransky. I'm clinching, Adam. I'm clinching. These are not very exciting. But they are guys in play. Ugh. All right.
Yeah, I mean, Satoransky's minutes have definitely been up lately. Playing 28 to 30 every game.
All right. Now, on to dessert, the more fun side to discuss. We're going to talk Houston, and then we'll get on out of here.
I have more to point out on Thaddeus Young. Now that I'm looking at the Atlanta game closer. So Young only played 19 minutes against Atlanta. He got in foul trouble in the 3rd quarter and just never came back. He picked up 3 fouls, his 2nd, 3rd, and 4th within 4 minutes. But looking at the first half rotation against Atlanta, Luke Kornet didn't play a single minute. Luke Kornet had been the backup center to Wendell Carter. So you had Lauri Markkanen backing up Carter, which opened up more minutes for Thaddeus Young. Now, Thaddeus Young played about 15 minutes in the first half. You don't want to take anything away from that because Wendell Carter Jr. Picked up a foul and left the game with 6:43 to go in the 2nd quarter. So take like those 6 minutes and 43 seconds off of 6 minutes off of Young, but you still got about 10 and a half, 11 minutes from Young. So I think that getting him to 22 minutes, if that's going to be the rotation, 22 minutes with the potential for a little bit more even is pretty realistic if Markkanen is going to be the backup center.
All right, Houston. We've got Eric Gordon should be back. He has been dealing with the hamstring issue, but they've said he is a full go. Of course, that could always be an in-game tweak, but you've got James Harden, clearly the top dog, Russell Westbrook, conceivably there, especially when you start to look at the discount to Harden. It's 28 800 on DraftKings, which is pretty sizable, 1,700 there on FanDuel, and 8 on Yahoo. So the DraftKings one makes it, I like Harden at 11-8. They're making it a little difficult for us, or it's not difficult. They're making it a decision point rather than just a jam him in. There's still plenty of value. The Chicago game too, quote, jam him in if you want to. And then we've got Clint Capella, also an intriguing play. Tough ask at 8,900, I think, on FanDuel, Adam, but 74 on DK, 28 on Yahoo. Very palatable. And then I don't know what to do with everybody else. I guess Daniel House and PJ Tucker, they're going to be on the floor. Tucker's still priced up incredibly high from his his torrid shooting streak to start the season, which is going to normalize in a harsh way at some point. Talk to me here about the Rockets.
Yeah, pretty much just the big three for me. Harden, I'm with you. I like the pricing because you can still get to him, but you have to actually sacrifice some stuff, which is nice because he's, should be the highest scorer on the slate. So I think he's a good play. It's just that there are plenty of other guards that you can get to for cheaper that give you really high ceilings. Like if Russell's in, we know the ceiling he has. We know the ceiling Russell Westbrook has in this game. Luka's got a monster ceiling as well. So I think that, it makes for a really interesting roster construction. I think Westbrook is the better point per dollar play at $2,800 less expensive. You should get around 35, 36 minutes from Westbrook. Keep in mind that he lost playing time in the game against Golden State because he rolled his ankle with like 6 minutes to go and just went straight to the bench. There was no reason to bring him back because it was a borderline blowout. So keep that in mind. He should get 35, 36 minutes here. Still, chasing rebounds, still picking up a ton of assists. So I think that Westbrook is factoring in salary. I think Westbrook's a better play than Harden, but I think that they're both two of the best plays on the slate. Capella kind of at a weird price point where I would prefer saving the money on Valanciunas. The minutes for Capella have been all over the place this year. He admitted that he's having some shoulder issues that are making rebounding and dunking difficult, which is basically what Capella does. So that's not great to hear, and maybe it has something to do with why his minutes have been so inconsistent. But even if I project him for 30 minutes here, he comes out as a good but not great option, and I would just kind of rather save the money and go to Valanciunas or go to Steven Adams.
All right. That'll kind of wrap us up there. We've got, of course, as I mentioned, the NFL DFS strategy show coming up next. You've got On the Contrary with Alex, Chris Spags, and the one and only CJ, the Siege Kaltenbach. You've got Jake Hari doing NHL show today. We have a very robust, it's Hockey Night in Canada, so a very robust NHL. If you're a member, and if you're not a member, join and play hockey. I don't watch the games unless there's no NBA on. So wait for it. I'm not watching the games anymore. Hockey our projections are second to none for hockey. You get a little love there with the Fantasy Cruncher, set up your own little process and methodology. And I've been making my lineups at the same time as I'm making NBA lineups. And thank goodness, because NBA got harder yet again, as it does every year. But NHL is helping me tick my account balance up, and I like that a lot. On Yahoo today, you've got the $25,000 baller. That is a $10 entry fee, and then you've got several single entry contests at various price points. Go ahead and play in those. They're a lot of fun. Yeah, the top prize, is like $50 or $100 or whatever it is. But guess what? You have a realistic chance of winning when you play, unless you're who was it? Paul G in the chat. Unless you're him and winning six figures, or Alex winning $200,000 last night. Yeah, you want the green. You want the green. It's all about not redepositing. So check that out. We'll have the Cash Game Building Blocks article posted as soon as we get our ownership projections, which should be coming in at any moment. And then we have, you'll get another free article from me after lunch. That will be the Yahoo $250,000 baller-centric article. I'm just writing up tight ends right now, so maybe it'll actually be done before lunch. But you got all sorts of content out there. And then Adam is debating right now. Some of you guys say Adam wants to get off the show. Adam's not, wants to go back to bed. Well, Adam's trying to decide, do I take a nap and then write the article? Or do I write the article and then take a nap? These are the decisions Adam is making this morning. Which is in the lead, Adam?
No, I don't. No nap. I went to bed at like 10 last night. I already had coffee this morning. I'm good.
Yeah, a couple couple sorry people we are. We were both asleep before 10:30. Something happens when you have to do this show at 9:30 in the morning instead of 11.
Yeah, I mean, my teams just sucked, so I put on. I'm almost done my second time through Breaking Bad, and I decided that was a more enjoyable thing to watch than basketball last night.
There we go. All right. Well, with that, gamers, we're going to get on out of here. Oh, yes. Cherry on top. 6 o'clock live before lock NBA. That's going to be fast, Eddie Fair. With that, gamers, you can follow Adam at ShipMyMoneyDFS. I am at EmacDFS. And, of course, it is Osimo_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.